Okay, welcome back. So today's lesson is going to be about pedigrees, and pedigrees are really just another model that show how traits are inherited from one generation to the next. A lot of times pedigrees are used by genetic counselors. If like a disease or a symptom is very prominent in the family and they want to figure out the chances of their offspring having it, they may go see a genetic counselor and they might construct a pedigree. So looking at this pedigree here, it's just a diagram of family relationships to show a pattern. This is a pedigree. They got a key. Males are denoted by the shaped squares and females by circle. Now this pedigree is pretty in-depth. Blue means wild type male, and red here means that you have the disease or the symptom or whatever trait that you're looking at. Carriers, which means they're heterozygous, they have a big letter and a small letter, are shaded in halfway. Now, some pedigrees, they don't show carriers at all. So just be aware of the pedigree you're looking at, or whether or not carriers are shown by the shading of the shape. Otherwise, you may have to do some investigative work. So I know I said this says wild type male, and that means normal. Well, let's just say we're looking at dimples, where blue, if you have the color blue, you have dimples denoted by a capital B. So right off the bat, you could figure out the genotypes of all these individuals. Like here, looking at dad, he's shaded in blue and red. So because he's got a blue half, that's the big B, and the red half is a little b. Same with mom, big B, little b. Now the lines that connect these two show marriage, and the lines that stem from that show you how many kids they had. Now you have to be very careful, because you might have some questions, say how many children were there, and you're like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that's not how it works. You have to see how, the lines that are actually connected to these parents. So you follow this line, you can say, okay, they had a girl, so here's 1. They had a son, 2, 3, and 4. So they have 4 kids. You can go ahead, or I guess I'm just going to go ahead and write out their genotypes. B, big B, little b. This daughter is big B and big B. She's completely filled in blue. Same thing here. This is a heterozygote. This son is little b, and he married someone that was big B, big B. Okay, so the levels show generations. So this is, usually they use Roman numeral, but that's not depicted here. Roman numeral 1. Over here would be Roman numeral 2. And then down here would be Roman numeral 3. And then they number the individuals from left to right. So 1, 2. And this just makes it easier so you know exactly which individual you're talking about. So if I say Roman numeral 1, 1, you're like, okay, here's Roman numeral 1, and here's 1. Okay, we're talking about dad. Okay. Now let's just say that you are like one of these two individuals. Okay. What would be the relationship of you to Roman numeral 1? So if this is you, then these would be your parents, and these would be your parents' parents. So these are actually your grandparents, and you are the grandchildren. So you can see how it's a family tree, okay? Showing these relationships between individuals. Let's take a look at another pedigree. So here I have a pedigree, and the key down here, male, female, and if you're shaded in, means that you are affected with, whatever trait you're looking at. Would you say that this trait is dominant or recessive? I hope you're thinking recessive, and the reason for that is that it doesn't show up often. In order to have the trait, you have to have 2 lowercase letters, and I'm just going to use letter R. So you can see that this individual is big R, but there's a pretty good chance that this individual is also got a second big R. But you don't see a lot of other shaded in individuals, so it's a pretty good indicator that it's probably recessive. Okay, here's a trait or a symptom called PKU. Okay, if you are dotted, that means you are heterozygote, you are a carrier. you don't have PKU, but you carry the allele for someone that has PKU. And if you don't know what PKU is, it's just a symptom where you can't eat certain amino acids, so you have to have like a strict diet, if you will. So let's use the letter, we'll just use the letter P, okay? So this means you're a heterozygote. You have a big letter and a small letter. So this is big P, little p. Big P, little p. Big P, little p. So you can figure out the genotypes just based on the shading of this. All right, one more. All right, now if you have PKU, you're a homozygote, and we'll say this is recessive. Okay, so this individual is 2 little p's. I'm just going to make the p's really, really small because it's kind of hard to tell if it's lowercase or not. 2 little p's. What do you think the genotype is for this individual? Well, remember, you get your alleles from your parents. So this is a girl, and these are her parents. She's not shaded in, so she doesn't carry the allele for little p. So this individual got a big P from dad and a big P from mom. So they are big P, big P. Okay, so the ones that are unfilled, they're all big P, big P. Okay, another Punnett square. I think this is the one that's, where's not Punnett square? Pedigree. I think this is the one that's in your notes. So you can see here we have our Roman numerals showing generations. Okay, and if you are unshaded, you are homozygous recessive. And if you are shaded, then you carry the dominant allele. You could be a carrier or you could be big W, big W. So carriers are not shown in this pedigree. So let's go ahead and try to figure out the genotypes of all the other individuals, where big W, if you have it, you're shaded in and you show widow's peak, and little w means you don't have widow's peak. So all the individuals that are unshaded by default are 2 little w's. Okay, so I can go ahead and fill in little w, little w. That's supposed to be a little w. These are really bad w's. Okay, so the easy ones are done. Now we got to take a look at 2, 3, and 4. Now they're shaded in, so that means they for sure have a big W. Try to purposely make these big. The second question is, what's their second allele? Well, you get your alleles from your parents. So they got big W from mom. So they can't get any more letters from mom. So we have dad over here. Well, dad only has little w, little w. So dad gave them little w's. So 2, 3, and 4 are all heterozygotes, carriers for the little w, if you want to call them carriers. All right, let's take a look at individual 1. What's the genotype of Roman numeral 3, 1? Well, they're shaded in, so they for sure have big W. What's their second allele? Well, they got their big W from dad, so we got to look at mom, and mom is little w, so little w. Okay. All right, got one more individual down here. They're shaded in, so for sure a big W. What's the second allele? Well, take a look at the parents. So big W came from Roman numeral 2, 4. So we have to look at 5, the mom. Well, she can only give a little w. Okay. What I'd like you to do right now is go to Google Classroom, and underneath Google Classroom, you'll see something called Pedigree Practice, and it'll look like this. And I just want to do, scroll down to the second page, okay? So here's the second page, and I just took a picture of it and pasted into Notability or Notebook so I could write on it. So it says a pedigree is a chart of a person's ancestors that is used to analyze genetic inheritance of certain traits, especially diseases. The symbols used for pedigrees are circles for female, if they're, in this case, not shaded in, or unaffected. If they're shaded in, they're affected. Males are square, unshaded means unaffected, shaded in means they have it. Siblings are placed in order of birth from left to right and are labeled with numbers, and each generation is labeled with a Roman numeral. So it says, try to identify the genotypes of the following individuals using the pedigree above. Basically label them as homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or just heterozygous. And if I want to be picky, it'd be heterozygous dominant. Okay. So Roman numeral 3, 3. So here's Roman numeral 3 and 3. So we're looking at this individual. Now, using our key, they are affected, and this is recessive, because if we look at this pedigree, there's not a lot of individuals that have it, so it's probably recessive. So if you're shaded in, you're recessive. So go ahead and write recessive. I don't know why I just wrote recessive. There's only one way to be recessive, and that's homozygous. So homozygous goes here. Homozygous recessive. Wow. Okay. Let's take a look at Roman numeral 2, 1. So here's 2, 1. So we're looking at this individual right here. So remember, you get your alleles from your parents. Okay. This person, are they shaded in? No, they're unaffected. So they probably carry a dominant letter. Okay, let's just say R. Okay, so they for sure have an R. If you're shaded in, like number 3 here, they're a little r, little r. So take a look at their parents to figure out the second allele. Okay, so unshaded means they got a big R. That's probably where they got that big R from. Take a look at dad. He's shaded in. So he's little r, little r. He can only give a little r. So this individual is big R, little r. So they're dominant. I'm just going to abbreviate DOM for dominant. Now the question is, are they homozygous or heterozygous? You would say heterozygous, because the letters, big letter and small letter, hetero means different. So Roman numeral 2, 1 is hetero. Okay, let's take a look at Roman numeral 1, 1 right here. So they're shaded in, they're affected. This trait seems to be recessive. So again, this person is homozygous recessive. Okay, Roman numeral 2, 4. So here's Roman numeral 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. This individual. So when we look at Roman numeral 2, 4, you can see that they are unaffected. So for sure they have a capital letter. Now the question is, do they carry a small letter? So we look at the parents, and you can see that they are also unshaded. And none of their offspring have the trait. So none of the offspring have the trait. So you're like, oh, they must be big R. But wait a minute. Take a look at 4's children. Okay, they had 5 kids, and their kids are, they have this, they're affected by the trait. So 3 and 4 are little r's. Remember, you get your alleles from your parents. So one little r came from mom, and the other little r came from dad. So Roman numeral 2, 4 is actually big R, little r. So they are heterozygous dominant. Okay, question 1, is this trait dominant or recessive? Explain your answer. So we would say recessive, because not a lot of individuals have it, because you need both alleles in order to have it. And then number 2, how can you know for sure that individuals Roman numeral 2, 3, and 2, 4 are heterozygous? Well, take a look at their children. Their children, they have children that have the trait, and they don't have it, but they're carriers, and each one of them gave that little R to them. Okay. Now on that document, if you scroll all the way back up to the beginning, okay, so the first page, it's talking about Huntington's disease. So again, I just took a picture of it and pasted it into Notebook so I could write on it. Okay, one more sample problem, and then I'll talk about the assignments. So here we have a pedigree, 3 generations. You can see they're numbered left to right in order of birth. And if you're shaded in, you have this thing called Huntington's disease. So number 1, which members of the family above are afflicted with Huntington's disease? So they want to know the individuals that have it. So we'd say, okay, Roman numeral 1, 1. So I, 1. Go to the second generation, 2, Roman numeral 2, 2, Roman numeral 2, 3, Roman numeral 2, 7. And then we have the third generation, 3, 3. Question 2 says, there are no carriers for Huntington's disease. You either have it or you don't. With this in mind, is Huntington's disease caused by a dominant or recessive? So it means you either have it or you don't, which means you just need one letter. And if you have that one letter, you're going to have the trait. So that means that it's dominant. How many children did individuals Roman numeral 1, 1, and Roman numeral 1, 2 have? So here's dad, here's mom. Let's follow the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 6 children. How many girls did Roman numeral 2-1 and 2-2 have? So here's 2-1, 2-2. Here's the line that shows kids that came from them. So 1, 2, 3, but they want to know how many girls. So girls are denoted by circles. So 1, 2. How many have Huntington's disease? So if you're shaded in, so it'd be 1. How are individuals 3-2, this person right here, and 2-4 related? So we're looking at the relationship between these two. Well, if this is you, who would this be in your family? This would be your uncle. So we have an uncle and niece relationship. Okay. How about Roman numeral 1-2? So this person right here. And 3-5. So 3-5. Okay, so if this is you, who is that? So these are your parents, and this would be your parents' parents. So that's grandma. I'm just going to say Gma. And this is a square, so it'd be grandson. Grandson. Okay. So your assignment. Okay. First off, this pedigree practice, it's called pedigree practice. I'm not great in this. If you want to test yourself on pedigrees, go for it, because at the very end, I have the key. Okay? So the key is all right here. So if you want to practice and then check yourself, do it. But your assignment is actually the pedigree assignment. So this front page is just introduction, just goes over what pedigrees, what do the shapes mean, what does it mean if you're filled in. And this says sometimes carriers or heterozygote individuals are shaded in, sometimes they're not. This is some more information. Make sure you read all of this. Now the first part you got to do is, here we have letters A, B, C, and D. And it says use the pedigree chart. Some of the letters may be used more than once. So number 1 says a male. So which one of these letters shows a male? Well, males are square. So you would write C for number 1. Number 2, a female. Which one of these letters shows a female? Well, females are circle. So then you'd write A. So you'd go on and answer the rest of the questions. Take a look at 8. It says, assume in this chart above is tracing the dominant trait of a white forelock, capital F, through the family. F is a tuft of white hair on the forehead. What is the most likely genotype of individual A? So it's tracing the dominant trait. So for sure, letter A has a big F in their genotype. But take a look at the children. Do they have children that don't have it at all? Yeah, they do. So that means A has to be big F, little f. Okay, because they have children that don't have it, and they got the little f's from both parents. If we look at 9, what is the most likely genotype of individual C? Well, they don't have it at all. And if you are unshaded, that means you don't have the white forelock, which is dominant. So therefore, you are recessive. So your genotype better be 2 little f's. When you're done with that page, you only have 2 more pedigrees to do. So you just make sure you read this top information. This is looking at a recessive trait, and this pedigree is looking at a dominant trait. So that does it for the homework. Okay, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.